The courtroom was tense as the judge read through the papers in front of her. The girl named Eva sat silently next to her adoptive parents, her eyes downcast. The hearing was to finalize her adoption, but the judge had a feeling something was not quite right. So she focused her attention on Ava and asked her a very important question. Ava hadn't spoken a word yet. She had listened in silence, while her adoptive parents spoke highly of her, praising Ava and convincing the judge they were the perfect family for her. The judge had listened with positive body language, but that suddenly changed, and now she wanted Ava to speak up. Ava, the judge asked again. She had repeated the question, but Ava had no idea what to say. She could change the course of her future with just one answer. But will that be the right decision? She looked back at the ground, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. Should she do it? The judge was getting impatient. She had asked her the question for a second time, but still got no answer. Then suddenly, Ava looked up, stared directly into the judge's eyes and said, "But what did the judge ask Ava? What did she say to stop the hearing? And will she make the right decision?" Ava had a difficult childhood. She never knew who her biological parents were, as she was left at a hospital when she was just a baby. She was taken into the system and has been searching for her permanent adoptive parents. Since then, she never had much luck, but this time around, it would be different. This time, Ava was placed in the care of the Smiths, a loving family who had already adopted 2 children in the last few years. Ava felt happy with her new family, and for the next few months really enjoyed living with them. But she couldn't shake the feeling she was missing something. Ava felt that no matter how nice everyone treated her, she never fitted in. Because of this, she feared she would never find a place where she truly belonged. So she eventually gave up. She was content with the idea of living with lovely people and discarded her own feelings for the security of a permanent home cell when the Smiths asked Dave if she wanted to join their family forever. She didn't hesitate to say yes. Everyone was overjoyed and happy to add a new family member to their home. Miss Smith told David she was the missing piece to their puzzle, and now their family was finally complete, or so they thought. So the next day, the Smiths told Dave it was time to finalize her adoption. They had asked David beforehand, many times, if she was really sure about this decision. They assured her they wouldn't feel badly toward her if she changed her mind. But Ava told them she was sure, but little did they know this wasn't the case. Ava wasn't sure at all. But she was in a difficult position. Should she tell them about her doubts, or should she proceed and live in a steady, loving, and secure household for the rest of her life? Of course, Ava chose the latter. How could you expect otherwise from such a young child? So the Smiths called the adoption agency and told them the good news of his caseworker was over the moon and wasn't shy to let Ava know how proud he was of her. They scheduled a date for the court hearing. And as they said goodbye, of his caseworker said once more how happy he was for her. As the days passed on, and the date for the court hearing got closer and closer, Ava couldn't stop thinking about the choices she had made. She started feeling more and more like the black sheep of the family, never really fitting into their plans and hobbies. But she wasn't going to tell anyone. She wondered why she felt like this. Why couldn't she be happy with the family she's got? She knew she had to be grateful for it, because not many children find their new forever home so soon. But there was something in the back of his mind that she couldn't stop thinking about. Soon after the day of the court hearing arrived, the Smiths were very excited and made sure to give her the best morning by baking her pancakes and pouring her fresh, squeezed orange juice. They smiled and laughed at the breakfast table, talking about all the fun things they would do as a family. After breakfast, everyone went their own way and got ready to go to court. Miss Smith had bought a new outfit for Ava to wear and was proud to see her in her new clothes. Ava smiled and acted like she was just as excited as them. But in reality, she felt different. She felt scared. They headed over to the courtroom and went through all the standard procedures. His heart pounded in her chest as they walked through the hallway. Today would be the day she would finally legally belong to a family again. But instead of feeling happy, Her stomach turned at the thought. Ava had no idea why she was feeling this way. This family would give her anything her heart desired. They would care for her and love her unconditionally. But something felt off. Ava felt like there was something else going on. But she had no idea what. She could just feel it in her gut. The hearing began, and they all stood when the judge arrived. Ava felt a wave of anxiety wash over her, but she pushed it aside and reminded herself of the happy life she would live with this family of his foster parents, spoke first praising their parenting skills and how much they loved and cared for Eva. They showed pictures of the family together in videos of them doing fun activities together, trying to persuade the judge that they were the perfect family for her. Eva knew they weren't lying. They were the perfect family, but maybe a bit too perfect for all of his liking. There had to be something else. Ava listened in silence, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and anger. She was mostly angry with herself. Why would she want to find something negative about something that could be so good for her? Her future would be filled with possibilities if she were to be adopted by this family. If, as the trial continued, Eva was sure the judge was fully convinced this was the right family for her. She hadn't spoken a word yet, but the judge hadn't asked her anything either. All Eva did was listen in silence and occasionally look down at her new shoes. But that was about to change very soon. Suddenly, Eva noticed a sudden change in the judge's body language, where it had been open and relaxed the whole time. It was now a bit tenser, and so was her facial expression. She frowned at the paper before her and stuttered when she asked his parents the following question. "Will you allow Ava to search for her parents?" Most adoptively, everyone in the courtroom fell silent. Her parents, Mr. Smith answered, confused. Off his interest was now sparked. Even Ava herself has never met her parents. They cold-heartedly left her as a newborn baby all alone in front of a hospital. The judge looked at Mr. Smith with a serious face. "Answer the question, Mr. Smith," she says, turn look on her face. "Of course, we'll allow her," Miss Smith quickly answered while comfortably resting her hand on her husband's upper arm. "If she ever wants to search for them, we'll support her." Miss Smith obviously tried to make her answer sound as confining as possible. She knew what answer the judge was looking for with a question like that, and she had done her homework before coming to court that day. But in all honesty, she was not telling the truth with her answer. Of course, she and her husband had discussed the possibility of this when they decided to adopt a young child from foster care. But they had come to the conclusion that letting the child look for their real parents would most likely only cause trouble in the long run. Maybe the child would not find those parents in the first place, and this could lead to a lot of negative emotions like disappointment and even depression. And the same goes for if she were to find those parents and they wanted nothing to do with her. Or it could swing the other way. Maybe the child finds her parents and they'd start building up a bond again. This would weaken their own relationship with their adoptive daughter. Whatever way you slice it, letting the girl look for her parents was a bad idea. And it wasn't like the judge could look right through Miss Smith. She had dealt with many cases like this before and really knew how to read somebody in the situation. She leaned over her desk a bit and looked Miss Smith directly in the eyes. "Are you sure?" The questions made Miss Smith tremble a bit, but it had the opposite effect on Ava. This interaction made her feel like the judge was very much in her corner, something she did not really think was possible when the session started. Maybe she could finally be honest here, even hesitated before drawing attention to herself. If she were to speak up here about her truth, she could ruin any chance she had of a future with a loving family. She had no reason to doubt these people, but her gut feeling just was so strong. She could not hold it in. This internal monologue that Ava was having could apparently be read on her face, as when the judge glanced in her direction. She could immediately see that something was bothering the young girl. She immediately slammed her hammer down and calmed for a half-hour recess. Ava was caught off guard by this and expected that she would just go with her foster parents to be for the time being. But the judge specifically requested to see the young girl in her office for a bit during the intermission. But not everybody agreed with this. Miss and Mr. Smith first wanted to know what the judge wanted to discuss with Ava, and why they could not be present during these talks. The judge could not expect to get useful answers out of such a young girl who knows what you would blurt out that he did not really mean. But the judge was not going to change her opinion because of some entitled parents. She had been doing this way too long and already got a good idea of what was going on here. She was going to talk to Waver alone, and that was that Ava was dead nervous. When she walked into the judge's chamber only moments later, the judge was sitting behind her desk waiting for the little girl with a warm smile on her face and a cold glass of lemonade for the young girl. She wanted Eva to feel comfortable. She first asked David general questions about how she thought the court hearing was going and how she was feeling. But the young girl was holding a lot back with her answers. She was keeping everything short and to the point, and the judge could do nothing about that. So the judge decided to switch approach and to really try to make sure that he understood what was going on here and what was at stake, that if she wanted to let her true feelings be heard, that this was the only chance to do so. The young girl was very much taken aback by this, but the approach did seem to work. Ava was breaking right in front of the judge's eye. She started crying, sobbing. But at least he was giving honest answers now. And the judge knew exactly what to do with that information. When Ava had calmed down, she thanked the young girl and asked her to be this honest in court. If Ava could do that, then she would make that everything was going to work out for the young girl. Ava swallowed away her tears and agreed. The judge was right. She had to be honest here. When the court got back in session a bit later, the Smiths were a lot more nervous than before. They had no idea what had become of the conversation, but we may have in the judge, but they had no idea it was going to impact the hearing. And so it did. After the formalities, the court expected that the case would continue, where they left off about an hour ago, but the judge had other plans. She seemingly skipped a lot of important steps in the process and very quickly turned her and the whole court's attention to Eva. Eva, I have one very important question to ask you, and I am going to need an honest answer from you. Are you going to be able to do that? Eva V knew that this question from the judge was coming, but she still felt as nervous as could be. And who could blame her? She felt that the eyes of every single person in the court were fixated on her and her alone. And the answer she would give would determine everything in this case. The judge did not waste any more time. Eva, do you want to be adopted by the Smiths? Mr. and Miss Smith first looked back at the judge in disbelief equals before turning their attention back to Ava. They could not believe that this question was even being asked, and Ava caught them very much off guard with her answer. The young girl took a deep breath and nearly shouted it through the courtroom, stunning everybody into complete silence. No, the Smiths could not believe it. But Ava was also actually able to give an explanation for her rejection of them. This whole time she had been wondering why the prospect of being adopted by the family had not seemed like a good idea to her, even though at face value, it was great. But the judge made her realize that it did not matter that she could not think of a good reason. They were talking about adopting her. She was going to most likely be considering these people her parents for the rest of her life if she decided to go through with it. If there was ever anything that needed to feel 100% perfect, this was it. And seeing as this was simply not the case, then they should not go through with the adoption. Maybe it seemed like a bad choice, but all of his feelings here were the most important aspect of the whole situation. And luckily the judge helped her see that Mr. and Miss were obviously very disappointed, but they could also not be mad or something. They understood the perception and arguments of the judge, and as much as they wanted Ava to be their daughter, if it did not feel right for her, then they should not go through with it.